Hey everyone, Steve here with Class A Surfacing. So a couple of things that I want to talk about are visualization tools that have been recently introduced into NX. And quite frankly, I am an absolute fan of these tools. I think they really make things a lot easier to visualize in a lot of ways. I have the icons pulled out and placed on the side. This is just my preference. Again, this is the way I like to set things up. I have a couple of visualization tools that I like here next to my part navigator. And the two new tools are called smooth edges. So if you want to pull these out and place them down, you can. And the other one is called reduce edge bleed through. Now, technically, when you shade up something, or if you go into, wireframe view, you have the edges of all the faces. Now, if I turn this off, this edge bleed through, I just turned it off, you can see everything looks a little bit thicker. You have to remember that when you are shading up a part, that this face has an edge, this face has an edge, and it's shared. At this point, it's shared. This is also good for really thin parts. If you're dealing with a lot of bleed through on the thin part, maybe something behind the face, it looks like it shouldn't be there. What this does is it basically overrides all of your anti-aliasing settings and line widths and all sorts of other stuff. And what it does is it forces the system, when you turn it on, to minimize the bleed through of those edges. So the edges, in this case, look a little cleaner. You can see over here, it looks like it's kind of wiped away a little bit. Let me just move the mouse off. But the edge is still technically there as you rotate. So it's basically within the field view, angle view. So, it's just kind of cleaning up those edges. If I turn that off, you can see everything comes back nice and thick. So it also makes everything appear as it has a thinner edge. And a lot of people like that. Again, I'm a big fan of this because now I can really clean up that screen if it's kind of busy. So this just makes viewing things a little easier. It's just another way to look at the model. The other setting that I'm a big fan of this, it's called smooth edges. So when I first got on NX, I got used to looking at my part like this. And it used to be that you would turn the part and it would stay just like that without any edges. Then they introduced the ability to view shaded with edges. And in the olden days, when it first came out, because of video card processing, it was more of a hardware thing. It would rotate and then the edges would go away, then you would stop rotating and the edges would come back. It was kind of irritating. But now, because of all the power of our computer systems, you're no longer on a workstation and you're stuck with older technologies, the ability to show or display edges just the way they are like this on the part has really made modeling for me a lot easier. I can see where I have edges that everything comes together. I can visualize kind of what's going on. If I recognize bad data right away, you can see in that little pocket right in here, you can see that there's stuff. All right, so there's problems, but that's one of the reasons why I like displaying my edges. But at this point, we now have what's called smooth edges. If I turn this off, the system regenerates it, and what it does is anything that is smooth, meaning tangent, it does away with that edge. And anything that has a hard edge, like a corner, like these up here, it shows that edge. So I'll just turn off the edge bleed through, and you can really see, right? You have smooth edges here, and here, and you have hard edges here. So this gives you an indication of where your hard edges and smooth edges are at. And again, for me, I love this because if I'm doing something that requires a lot of heavy filleting, like this, for example, any kind of castings, a lot of injection molded parts, sheet metal parts, where you have all these fillets running over the top of each other and they intersect, it helps to visualize what you have filleted and what you still have as sharp edges, and it also helps to get an order in your mind, because now you can see what has a fillet and what doesn't a little bit easier. Sort of, for me anyway, it gives me a better visualization of the part, and I can then place the order or place the fillets in the order that I want to a little bit easier. Because again, I have a stark contrast contrast between what is and is not filleted or blended. So these are those two new tools, and I just absolutely love that tool. I also love this tool. My preference on a model, though, when I do display it, I have a tendency to go with very thin edges regardless. So another nice thing with doing the reduced edge bleed through is that it minimizes those edges quite considerably. And as you can see, the sharp edges still look pretty sharp and crisp, but the filleted edges, or the blended edges, as you can see here, they sort of wash out a little bit. So it's just another nice way, or easy visualization tool to proof out what you're doing on the model. And again, if I turn that off, you can see the lines thicken up a bit, and but just like that, now I have the ability to really visualize, again, the edges, clean up the view, especially if I'm working with thin parts. The bleed through can be atrocious. Something on the back side of the part might show through to the front side of the part. And just like that with the switch, I can turn that stuff on and off. Love it. Thank you, people at Siemens. Thank you, thank you. Great job. Anyway, hope you learned something. If you did, give it a like, share with your friends, and if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Take care.